All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. I think you all know me, so Alicia Reisman, principal at Talmadge, and then Nikki DeRoja, our assistant principal, is going to help present some of the slides this evening as well. So our mission here at Talmadge is to facilitate the development of skills and character that empower students to be successful in school, college, career, and community. Recently, with our guiding coalition, we pulled them together and we kind of did a test, like who can say our mission? And we weren't able to all collectively come up with the full mission. So then we had the conversation, gosh, do we think we should shorten our mission or change our mission? And so we've been going to the solution tree trainings in Salem to try to boost our PLC and data team models. And part of that PLC talked about a lot of this. And so we brought a lot of those conversations back to the team. And the general idea was that, no, we really like our mission because it encompasses a lot of what we're doing AVID school-wide. And so ideally right now, we're in the process of working to be an AVID demonstration school. That's like our long-term goal. And a lot of what we're doing school-wide in terms of strategy and increasing the rigor in our classroom all stems from the AVID platform, which is what our mission encompasses. So then the team said, well, let's make our vision really short. So if anybody here was asked, what's the vision at Talmadge? It could be 2 or 3 words that everybody knows. And so then we had settled on inspiring excellence. And that is something that we thought our students could really get on board with. So if anybody was to ask our students, like, what does Talmadge really stand for? A lot of our kids already have said, we are AVID, so it's good to know that they know that's our platform. And then we're working on building and inspiring excellence across the board so that our students can also embrace that. And then every year I come up with a theme, and it's kind of like our August platform to kind of like here we go for the school year. And so this year we went with every student known, every voice heard. And so not only gathering the importance of really knowing our students by their name, but also just making sure that all the students have a voice. And so we've kind of started this where every quarter I go into every leadership AVID classroom, web classroom. So there ends up being 13 classrooms total that I go into every quarter, and I give the students an hour with me where they get to celebrate their successes, talk to me about things that they need improvement, things that are bothering them. They bring up a lot of like current trends that I should address and either like get on board with or put a stop to. Like 6-7 came up. And so it gives them a chance to not only just be known here at the school, but also know that their voice matters. And I was sharing with Susan, thank you for coming for the tour of the building today. In order to really make sure the kids know that I'm listening to what they're saying, I go through the list and I prioritize what I'm actually able to accomplish in terms of what they're asking me for, because they shoot really high, so I have to be careful what I grant. But one of our classes had said, we need more microwaves in the classroom. We spend too much of our time waiting in the microwave line. So we put 4 new microwaves in the library, or in the cafeteria. So now there's 6 microwaves and they don't have to wait. One of our classes had said, we need a bulletin board that's just for kids. So we can decorate it, we can put our themes up, we can celebrate what we want to celebrate. So I bought a big bulletin board and the kids have bought it. And I'd say it's everybody's favorite bulletin board. It's right on their way to lunch, so the kids pass by it. And the kids said, every day we update the joke of the day. And they're like, we know kids are looking at it because we hear the jokes after lunch. So it's kind of cute to hear their own catchy buy-in. And then the kids had said out at recess time, they need more stuff to do. And I was like, well, like what? And so they want a tether ball, which we're working on getting. And then they said, why can't we have nets out there? Not all of us do athletics, but we still love volleyball. So we bought a net system and we pull it in and out every day at lunch.
And then in the hallway today, and I never had noticed it before. I didn't realize that was new.
Yeah, yep. And then they're also pretty cute in that our 7th grade leadership class said, Ms. Reeson, sit down, it's time for you to be a student. I said, okay, what are you guys gonna teach me today? And they said, you keep trying to do all these things that we've never done before. And I was like, well, like what? And they're like, well, you have these new systems of like bringing the balls out, how we have to act at recess. Why can't you just do what we did at elementary school? And I was like, well, talk to me about it. What did you guys do? So they were giving me a lesson on how they behave and what their routines are and how they do it. And so I was like, okay. And so part of that was I had to have a ball box that all the equipment went into, and the students are in charge of that. And if they lose it, then that's on the students because they know where the ball box and the equipment is. So I recently implemented that, and it was cute because the leadership kids came up and they're like, hey, we saw the ball box, but now you really got to work on like dismissing by hand because then you wouldn't have all the trays left on the table. And I'm like, well, I want to try to give you guys a little bit of grace as middle schoolers. But at the end of the day, it's awesome because the kids are getting excited because they see that their voice is heard. Okay. So we have something called collective commitments and collective agreements. And so this one, I don't want to spend a ton of time, but I wanted to highlight it because we had reviewed this with our guiding coalition team as well. And a lot of the things that we have made commitments to do, we were excited because as we were talking about the rationale and focus of why we would commit to these things, we noticed that it encompassed a lot of excellent framework that our school needs to be grounded in, like our instructional excellence and equity, or having a safe environment and focusing on professionalism, to our climate and culture, our data-driven practices, which again is coming up and being fed with that solution tree training that we're doing. And then of course, our staff culture and unity. So just being sure that we're maintaining that communication style and just commitment to excellence and how we're building a culture among the staff so that it feeds into the students as well. Was there any questions? I think you guys have copies of it. Was there any questions on this? Okay, so I do have a fun handout for you. So this is kind of a lot and I apologize, but I wanted you guys to have the reel of what we actually have going on right now. So we as a staff meet in our teams. We have our Character Strong team, which is all about our SEL. And then we have our Avid Sight team, which focuses mostly on the academic components of it. Sorry. And so among these, we're in working with these teams, we set common agreements and we review these at our August PD. And these are things that every staff member will make a commitment to doing regardless. So there can't be like half in, half out, or there's a few outliers. The entire staff does this. And we really draw that home in August in that when students are coming from the elementary school, they have one classroom they go to, and so they're used to those routines and practices. When you come here to middle school and you have to go to 7 different classrooms, it can feel very overwhelming. So we are very intentional about picking which common agreements we focus on so that it doesn't matter if the kid has to go to 3 different rooms or 7 different rooms, the kid walks in and knows what the instructional routines are. So every classroom starts with a bell ringer. Every classroom has the weekly planner written out that kids can copy down. Every classroom has a learning objective for the day, and the kids are really good about choral reading that. They know the routine. So when the teacher's like, okay, what's our learning objective today? There's some type of class call out or way for the students to be able to identify and know what the purpose of the day is. And so these are some of the common agreements. So one of them is focused note-taking. We're really big on the interactive notebooks. If you've had middle schoolers, you might have heard our teachers refer to their I&D. And so that's how we're teaching kids how to process and take notes. So how to actually, instead of just listening to the teacher talk, how to start to interact and process what the teacher's saying and having examples so that you can refer back to them. And then all of our teachers agree on marking the text. This last year, we took it a step further and we looked at in 6th grade, this is what 6th grade will focus on with marking the text. 7th grade is gonna go to this next level. And then by 8th grade, students should be able to do these 3 things, but then also building in that next level. So like that alignment piece, we're starting to really dial in with our marking the text. And then the interactive notebooks I mentioned, the essential questions and learning objectives. So an essential question will guide a unit. So at the start of each new unit, the students are told, at the end of this unit, you should be able to answer this big question. And then the learning objectives is a daily learning objective. So by the end of this class period, you should be able to leave here and answer this question. We focus a lot on collaboration and relational capacity. That's a lot of our SEL and sense of belonging, but it also goes really well with our AVID in terms of like our WICR. Does anyone know what WICR stands for? Oh, really? Amy, I bet you do.
I used to. It's writing.
Writing.
Something.
Inquiry.
Inquiry.
Organization.
ICOR. Rigor.
Collaboration. and rigor.
Organization, rigor.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was kind of sloppy back there.
No, you got it. And then the last one is just the academic language piece. So we tell our teachers, every single one of you in this building is an English teacher. We're all academic learners, because in order for our students to be able to understand how to read a math question, there's academic vocabulary that goes with that. In science class, being able to break apart the text and teach the kids how to figure out what they're reading is crucial. So everybody in our building is essentially an English teacher.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
When I was in classrooms today, I saw all these things in practice. It's
Cool.
awesome. I highly recommend if you can squeeze in. I think there's a couple more times this week that you had said you would take people. I saw things today at TMS I've never seen before I've done multiple tours here.
Cool.
Highly recommended, warts and all, excellent.
And I didn't pay her.
No, she didn't, but it's cool. When I actually didn't read the slides in advance, I'm like, oh yeah, I saw that, I saw that, I saw that.
Yeah. Yeah, and along with the academic language piece, that's what I was pointing out to Susan too. We have word walls, and we took it a step further with our AVID curriculum this year. And it's not just about having posted vocabulary, but so that the kids can interact with the words. So the teachers will start a unit and give out the vocabulary. They'll usually divide the words up. We want the students writing what the definition is. Sometimes the kids will do both English and Spanish, which is what we're encouraging so that all of our learners can access it. They're doing lots of visuals and pictures, which again, work really well for our EV students. But the teachers are committed to somewhere in their unit, the kids are actually going up and interacting with the vocabulary words at some point, so that they're not just images there, but they're actually used to be able to work and cite your work. Okay. So this is our strategic plan scorecard. I'm sure you guys have all seen this. And so this continues to help guide and lead a lot of what we do. So we start with this as the foundation, and then we continue to build here at Talmadge. So we have some data. I'll let Nikki speak on our attendance. She's leading our attendance team and a lot of the attendance work that we're doing here.
Hi. So if we haven't talked very much before, I'm Nikki DeRoja. I'm one of the 2 assistant principals. Jay's over there in the gym with our basketball players. So this graph that you're seeing right now, you can see this is the students who attended regularly. So we want to see higher numbers on that. Historically, like September is a little bit of a like it's the start of the year, so we're balancing out who's going to be here for real and who's not. And so, and we also had some sickness, so we were down a little bit from the year before, but we bounced up in October. So we're really feeling hopeful that the things that we're doing are encouraging the students who, like as things have shaken out, there are students that are going to stay at school with us, that they are going to stick around, and we're doing lots of fun stuff that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. So mirroring the last image, we can see in October our chronic absence data, our chronic absenteeism is down a little bit too. So we're really excited about that. In September, again, it was a little figuring itself out, but in October we're down. So we're really excited about that trend. So in terms of strategies, we're kind of looking at student-centered and staff-centered. So in Ad Council, we're talking about, well, we want to see students at school, but we also want to see our staff here regularly and excited to be here, because that's what makes school a fun place to be, is like when everybody's excited to be here and here regularly. So for student-centered things, we have all sorts of things, and we're really focusing on welcome and engagement. And so that's school-wide, but also in the classroom. So one of the newer things that I'm trying is our TMS Academic Aura. That's Aura is a big word on TikTok for the young people, if you don't know. They taught me that that's something that they're using now. So the Academic Aura means everybody's in class, everybody's prepared to learn, and everybody is present, so we don't have any absences, and everybody's on time. That's the other thing. So the once a week, the first class to let me know that they everyone has met those criteria, they let me know, and then they win this award. So Is that one of our board members? So that's just one example, but we have lots of fun things in the classroom too. We have avid strategies across the school, like Alicia was talking about, daily trivia that Mr. Glassman does. We did a game of Clue school-wide in October. We have Student of the Week, Student of the Month. We're adding Spirit Weeks. We found that lots of students were engaging in our last Spirit Week in October. So we added one this month, and we're gonna be doing it every month. Because it's just one of those things where it makes it more fun to come to school. Actually, today was crazy hat or hair day. I have my hat in my office. I thought I'd take it off for this. And my hair is always a little crazy, so they like that. And guest speakers. And then student recognition, we have all sorts of student leadership that we're going to talk more about, and celebrations, so, yeah. For adult attendance, or like adult strategies, we also are trying to increase our family involvement. There's one of our student leadership classes are teaming with parent volunteers to host an activity night in December. Parent Square, I'm sure you've heard it from other schools, but it's really helping with communication, especially for our bilingual families. Something that we are sharing ideas with other schools. We saw MES is doing staff versus student attendance competition, so we're going to add that in. And we added also volunteers, parents to our guiding coalition. So those are just some of the ways that we're adding families. For staff strategies, we have traveling trophies, thank you cards, shout outs. We're trying to do lots of fun stuff. And we also have optional PDs that people can do on their lunch breaks. So Alicia's gonna go back to discipline.
Yeah, so I just want to post this. I think you guys have had a chance to view the discipline data that we have. So far, we're down for the month of October, which we're excited for. We hope that's partly in due to like our attendance and making it a welcome environment where everyone feels like they belong, and the consistency piece. We are aware that our male student population tends to drive a lot of our discipline data. And so we as a team continue to bring this to the forefront in terms of what we can do to try to make it more equitable. When we have really dove into our data, a lot of our boys are involved in some of the physical hands-on contact. And so we're talking about what are some proactive strategies that we can start to do, and how can we address some of these students that are repeat offenders to bring some of this down. Are there any questions on this?
I'll just add, we're seeing that trend across the district, right? That's part of why this is one of our strategic goals of just trying to, and again, it's a nationwide, right? That's not just a central school district or Oregon. Unfortunately, we have just more males that nationally get suspended more. So how do we just continue to work strategies at all the buildings to decrease that?
And so here are some strategies that we've taken on so far. So we continue to be PBIS with our Character Strong team, which is that social emotional team. And so we're constantly meeting with them. We're looking at data. We're asking the question why. We're talking about what are the big themes that we need to do some reteach on with our students. We're trying to be as growth mindset as possible in doing our reteach expectations. So not like shame, and don't do this, don't do that. But like, if we do this, it makes our environment better. And if we do this, then it makes everybody kinder, where everyone feels safer to belong here. We're trying to work a lot on restorative time. And so our detention or in-school suspension room, we have one staff member we're trying for consistency purposes of building relationships. And they're working and doing lots of restorative practices and reflection. So, hey, like your behavior was disruptive to a classroom. Who all did that impact? Well, it impacted the teacher because you interrupted them. It impacted the other kids in the classroom. And ultimately it impacted you because now you're out of the learning environment and you're in here. And so what are ways that we can get back into the learning environment? We can restore our relationship with those that we might have damaged a little bit. And then what are strategies and things we can do the next time this occurs so that we don't end up back in this seat?
And
But-
I also saw that room today.
Yes.
And there were no students.
And it was empty.
But all those things she was talking about were on display all around. So like the students can hear it and see it. And it just was pretty impactful to see that room I never saw before.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. We're hoping that helps to, again, build the relationship, give them the skills they need to reduce some of our discipline data. And then our huge thing this year is 4 at the door and 1 more. So we spent a lot of time in August just training our staff on what 4 at the door means. And so you're having lots of points of contacts with the kids before they even go in and sit down to be a part of the learning environment. So again, putting that relationship first. We're doing lots around bullying, harassment, and intimidation. So a lot of feedback that we had gotten in the past was that we're not doing enough to address this. Middle school is really hard. There's kids that are trying to mesh with 3 different grades and come together and learn how to form good friendships. And when we disagree with somebody, how we can do it. And so we did, is it mean, is it rude, or is it bullying campaign? So we did lots of pre-teaching in our classes on what those 3 categories are, so students can correctly identify if it is bullying behavior. And then if they get to the point where we spent a lot of time training our staff on how to fill out our reporting form. We had our technology department bookmark it on every student Chromebook. So any student can go onto their student Chromebook, scroll down to their bookmark, and be able to report to that form. As soon as they report to that form, it cues our whole counseling team and administrative team. And so that day the counselors are pulling the student in and they're working through that situation. And if it rises to the level of meeting the administration, then admin's pulled in and then we're working through that process. And it outlines to whoever reports on that form what our process is. So it gives the parents or community member a clear outline of what steps we're going to be working through and then what communication they're going to be getting back from us. And so we've had some really positive feedback on that. We do weekly pride drawings. So this is where we're demonstrating what pride is, which is purpose, respect, integrity, determination, and empathy. And then we infuse that with our character strong lessons, which has different pillars as well. So really working on the whole child and building character. And then of course we do student of the month, which I think Susan got to see as well. So each month our teachers pick a student of the month that has demonstrated one of these acronyms that we focused on. And we pull all of them for some prizes and shirts. We take their pictures and then we get to hang them in their grade level hallway just to kind of brag about them throughout the month. Okay, so we are AVID. Again, we're trying to go AVID demonstration status, which would allow us a lot more professional development. It allows our coaches that are trained to be able to go to more demonstration schools to bring back strategies to us. And so we are doing a lot of focus on writing to learn. And so again, a lot of this work was done, that's what I'm looking for, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. The vertical alignment piece of writing to learn. So in 6th grade, this is what we're gonna have them do. In 7th grade, this, and 8th grade, this. And every year, twice a year, so at the beginning of the year in August, we put this framework in front of our teachers and we'll start with just the 6th grade team. Here is what you have agreed to commit to. Does this still seem accurate? And they'll kind of give us feedback like, no, but that's too high, or no, those skills are too low based on what they're seeing and how kids are coming in. And then mid-year, we put it back in front of them and we tell them, okay, so this is what you've committed to. This is where we are in the year. Then we put them together. So I want all of 6th, 7th, 8th grade English teachers all to get together, all science teachers get together. And how can you build and incorporate this framework into the work that you're doing, just to ensure that it's brought back fresh to them throughout the year. We're doing lots of language inquiry, which is through our academic vocabulary. We're doing binders and planners for the organizational piece. So every quarter, the students are given a new planner, and our planners are intended to be very interactive. So again, every teacher has what they're doing for the week posted, so the students are built in time to write that into their planner. And then the prior week, they go back to their planner and they spend some reflection time on it. So what did I actually end up accomplishing in science? What did I really end up coming out of with ELA? Or what was my favorite thing that I did in math last week? And so the teachers are building in this time for them to go back and look at, was the organization that I set forth for myself this week, was it successful? Was it too hard? Was it effective? Because ultimately, by the time they get into 8th grade, we want them to start to be able to pick and choose habits that work for them. So not everybody is going to work from a paper, pencil, planner. And so they'll start to develop what works and what doesn't for them.
I will tell you that process, to watch it 6th to 8th grade, because I can tell you 6th graders by middle of the first semester, their binder is interesting. I'll just put it that way. But then watching them as they really learn how to use it, because it is an organizational skill, right? Calendars, those types of things, how I'm doing my homework, right? To watch kids who may not have any organization, and I mean that, I mean, it is by the middle of the semester, they are unorganized. But then being able to build and go, and by the time they're walking into high school, at least have a really good foundation of how do I organize 6 or 7 classes? And how do I really prepare myself for that? And I do think that's one of those skills we don't talk a lot about in school, but it's a life skill, right? Organization is a life skill, and it is something that is a key focus that I think Thomas does a really good job of helping kids get. Try and learn what's my best way to organize, right? We all organize differently, but it does help them try and identify how it works best for them.
Yeah, definitely. And then we're still doing our collaborative classrooms, and so we're doing lots of collaboration routines. Our instructional coaches will spend time each month during teachers' lunches. We host like soup and psyops, or we'll host envoy taco lunches where teachers can come and get a quick snack. But our coaches are feeding them the new strategies that work, so that school-wide we can start to roll out a similar strategy that kids can get exposure to in all the different content areas. So it doesn't matter if I'm in math class, but my teacher's gonna use a strategy and be like, oh, I've heard that before because my English teacher's using it, my science teacher's using it, and my math teacher just hit on it. So we want them to hear how one strategy can work in all the different classrooms. And then of course, just that student voice and ownership, which we talked a little bit about already. Nikki's gonna talk about the leadership opportunities in our building.
So one of my favorite things about working here is how many different opportunities that we have for students to be leaders. We have service learning class, a leadership class, web class, and unified PE. So our web class is like really like the foundation for the school, so that where everyone belongs. This is where our 8th graders are trained on how to welcome our 6th graders. And so they're working hard before the 6th graders even start here. They're building relationships before the 6th graders even start here. And they're kind of school ambassadors. And anytime we get a new student in, they're welcoming students. They're throwing events for students. They just threw the Harvest Festival in October. They're helping kids learn how to use their lockers and helping them navigate middle school. And so that's just one of the first opportunities that they have. Our service learning class and our service leadership class both give opportunities for students to do whatever project they see the need in our community, whether it's our school community or our broader community. So you've probably seen some of our leadership students out in the community. One of the things that happens every year is Relay for Life. Our students are really involved with that, and they collaborate with the high school. There's the Giving Tree, where they're getting presents for students who are at Dornbecker's Children's Hospital. We have Candygrams, we have Adoptive Family, and this is all really student-led. Our service leadership students run our recycling program. So they're in charge of that. They're taking all of that on. They're raising money. They're doing awesome things. But one of the really exciting things this year that we added is the unified PE class. And it is such a shining light of happiness. The students that are in that class had to apply if they're one of the mentor students or the leader students. And then our students with disabilities are in there partnering. And students are making these really genuine friendships that go outside of that classroom and really make the whole school experience and the whole school feel more connected and unified. And so we're hearing great things from students, from parents, from teachers about this class. And that class also kind of led the way in like an anti-bullying campaign in October. So that's a bright spot for sure. And so another really bright spot for us is our after school enrichment. The 2 that are running right now, we get different ones throughout the year, but the 2 that are running right now are chess and robotics. And we got a lot of really excellent interest from students in these groups. And so when they're in these groups, not only are they having fun, which is a lot, like we want students to be engaged in having fun, but they're also doing that cognitive skill building. They're doing hands-on STEM. They're fostering these 21st century skills that they need to be viable in the future job market. And most of all, they're building engagement. They're really excited and doing something that they feel happy to do. And so, yeah, we get really great participation in those. But something fun that's happening because of these groups and these students being engaged is other students are taking the initiative to start their own groups. So we just had a group of students come and they took the initiative to go talk to a teacher and say, we really want a wall ball group. And so they went and they found a teacher who would sponsor their wall ball group, and they're gonna have a wall ball group. And it's a simple thing, but it's something that the kids are really passionate about, and they took the initiative, so that's great. So yeah, this is kind of a little shift, so looking at assessment data. I'll start with our language arts assessment data, and then Alicia will talk about math. So this is for our state assessment. So for state assessments, I think one of the bright spots in this data, this is just looking at percent proficient, so on grade level. Our students with disabilities, for the most recent year, 15%. So in language arts, which a lot of our students do require accommodations and supports for the language arts, which is covering our reading and writing, which are some of the really hard to access things. So that's a bright spot from there. And then looking at our universal screener, so shifting from state to universal screener, that's our fast bridge. When we're looking at reading, we can see that the 6th grade cohort has been growing over time. And so I think some of that can be attributed largely to the elementary schools adopting the great new curriculum that really is high rigor and doing really great interventions in elementary school. And then in the short time, this is fall, 6th grade, we saw that little boost in the fall. So looking at the types of interventions that are going on here as well, I think there's some really bright spots looking at how that's all going.
And just a reminder to the board, overall K, because we really do universal screener K-8.
Mm-hmm.
We are in both, as I've shared before, both in language art and math, we are very close to being at or at the national average in the universal screener for reading. So I just do that as a reminder, because again, we know that we'd like this higher, so I want to be clear about that. We all want that, but we are hitting or very close to the national averages when it comes to reading. So that's a bright spot as well. Again, we want to continue to grow in that area, but moving in the right direction.
Yeah, it's taken some creative master planning because currently we have 5 different teachers teaching reading intervention throughout the school, which is the most we've ever had. And so they're doing that through our Read 180 and System 44 program. And so we're seeing a lot of success with those interventions.
Yeah, there's been some good growth. And so then also looking at our 8th grade cohort over time, it's been a little less stable. There are differences in curriculum. So we can see last year was an adjustment year for our new HMH curriculum at the middle school level. So I think we can consider that when we're looking at last year's data, but we're on the upswing.
And then shifting to math, same type of thing. We just switched our math curriculum, so I think we will continue to see our math data rise once our teachers kind of settle in and learn the curriculum. I will say so far, based on this new curriculum that we've had, the feedback is that it is super rigorous. So it's way more like the level or depth of questioning that they're asking from the kids, it pushes our kids further than they ever have before. And the teachers have said, they call it a golf game, because they said some days we start out our lesson and we're shooting par, and then before we know it, we end up in a sand trap, because they're like, how did that lesson go from teaching this to this? And it's not until 2 or 3 units later that they're like, oh, that's why they front loaded that skill. And so the teacher said it's a good learning adventure for them too, to figure out the rhyme and reason as to why they're front loading certain skills when they are. But I'm sure that we'll see some growth in this area as well. Does anybody have any questions with the data? Again, I don't want to bore this because I know you've had a chance to look at it, but if you've had questions, I would be happy to hit on any of those.
We go back one for me for just a second. Again, because this is 4th, 5th, and their current 6th graders coming in for math. Again, I think the reading work that we have done is going to continue to help the math. I would say with what Alicia just said, that is K-8. The math curriculum is much more depthy when it comes to, there's a lot of reading involved in it. That wasn't so much in our Engage New York bits and pieces of it, but when you look through the curriculum now, there's a heavy emphasis on the reading part before we even get to the math part. So again, that correlation of why we did language arts first, then going to math, that's intentional because you have to have really good reading and writing skills to lead into math.
Yeah, and the new curriculum, we're getting a lot of feedback from teachers that it is, like, the depth of knowledge level is really difficult and the reading is difficult. So that is one thing that our teachers are, that's a challenge that they're facing with, especially our multilingual students who are still trying to access the reading component of the math, and any students with disabilities with a reading challenge. That's something that they're going to be facing as well. Yeah.
So when I pulled the math team in and just kind of talked about this data, I was like, hey, it is okay for us to own where we are, but talk to me about this. Like, what do we think is happening here? And they said, well, Reese, it's really obvious if you look at our standards. And I was like, well, talk to me more about that. And what they said is the 6th and 7th grade standards are pretty well aligned. And it's a huge jump when you shift to your 8th grade year because there is so much work on math fluency that happens. And so it's a huge shift in, what was it?
So
Function?
number sense is what they're really tackling a lot in 6th and 7th, but then they start looking at algebraic functions and things like that. But the screener, our universal screener, is still screening for their fluency. And so when students are still heavily using calculators or multiplication charts because that fluency part isn't there, it's showing up in the screener, even if they're getting some of those algebraic ideas. Yeah.
So I said, great, that's good for us to know. And they said, we're aware, which is why we're building in lots of fluency options. I was like, perfect, that's what I want to hear. Okay, and then I'll let you see the other data. So Nikki's our EB, Emergent Bilingual Coordinator, so she does a lot of our ELD coordination in the building.
Yeah, so something interesting about this data is we had this kind of peak last year, or well, the year before last, and then a little dip. This is measuring ELPA proficiency level. A proficiency level is a big band. And so like within that big band, there's still room for growth, but you're not gonna see that reflected in this. So if a student went up a whole level out of only 5 levels in the previous year, it's gonna be really hard for them to go up a whole nother band the following year. So I think that is a little bit reflected here. We also had a transfer, we had a long-term sub last year, and there's been some shifts. So I think that little drop there could do some explaining for why we saw that little drop, but we do want to continue to see that growth. And then like by domain as well, we're looking at Talmadge and similar trend. So like the percentage with growth in at least one domain. Again, the domain is a big jump. So we're still seeing most students growing in at least one domain, and that is a big chunk of growth. So we're not capturing that little bit of if they're within the domain. Yeah.
Okay, so these are the strategies that we're doing to really ensure that we're meeting the needs of our students. So again, like we had talked about the Wicker focus, Amy, thank you for that earlier. We're just making sure also in that packet that I gave you in terms of like the common agreements, some of that's captured in here as well, like our bell ringers, so ensuring that students have what they need to be prepared, firing some of that previous knowledge and then applying it to new learning that's coming. We're doing lots of tier 1 data intervention. So students who are struggling, teachers are starting to meet on our Wednesday PLC time and look at data. And if they have maybe 6 to 12 kids that's struggling in one particular area, they'll just do a class swap. I'll take all of your kids who've got the concept and know the standard, and I'll do an enrichment activity. And then I'll take the 12 or 15 that are still struggling, and I'll do a different type of reteach opportunity to see if we can fine tune and gather that skill. And what we're finding is typically by the end of that 45-minute reteach opportunity, most all kids exit there being proficient in that standard. They just needed some really small, direct one-on-one instruction. And then, of course, our binder and planner checks. And then, working really hard with our ED team to continue the monitoring. So I'm sure you're aware, Talmadge went to an integrated, EV or ELD model last year. So students who have, well, yeah, I'll let you speak to it.
Yeah, so we've been at it for 2 years, but we had a lot of students, especially students that are coming in middle school or who have been in the country for a while and are still identified as EB students. Oftentimes kind of hit a little bit of a plateau in terms of what they're getting out of the ELD classroom environment and are just needing more exposure before they pass through the ELPA. And so what this model does is have students in mainstream classes, but they're still getting their EB services within the classroom environment and are getting regular check-ins from our EB team. And so right now our ELD teacher, Mr. Abrams, he has like a Google group for students and they get met with by our EB team about once per quarter to do like a specialized check-in on how their language acquisition is going, to make sure that they are still getting what they need, but in the classroom environment rather than having the special class, because it can turn into a big cognitive load and then students are also missing out on electives. So that combination can be a little bit demoralizing if you've been working on a skill for a very long time. So that's part of the reason for going to that model. And like Alicia said, we have our language focus throughout the building. So, and then we also just have our monitor students who are students who have passed the ELPA, but we keep an eye on after a couple years and they get checked on quarterly. We do a big meetup with their grade level teachers and make sure that they're doing okay.
Okay, I know that was a lot. Do you have any questions for us? Hold on, not everybody at once.
See what you're thinking, you were nodding so much, I was happy.
He's doing really good work. Like the content literacy pieces, I dream of seeing that in school all of the time. And I'm just
Cool.
really happy to see the focus on academic language and writing. That's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
Are we doing anything different to engage parents or caretakers, guardians? Has there been, or do we do anything different for like our Spanish speaking families?
So I will say in all honesty and transparency, we have been a little bit more careful this year. We have provided some opportunities. The feedback we've gotten from families is due to the nature of our politics and it's not necessary, they don't feel as safe to like leave their homes and come in. And so we've been doing lots of outreach with Parent Square. Even in terms of like our athletics, we're now doing a weekly athletic shout out newsletter so that people who can't be here to watch the sports are still getting some feedback and information. And then I would say it kind of goes the same way for our classes. We've just really encouraged our teachers at the start of every new unit, or if there's any type of communication that would help to draw the families in to give them more information on what they could be speaking to their kid about, to give them those scripts so that they can have some of that communication piece. Ideal world, we would be having parents come in and serving on our committee. So currently we do have parents on our Character Strong team, our Avid Sight team, and then our Guiding Coalition, but bringing parents in more often. So our volunteer list, we have been accessing that more than ever before. So we have about 23 parents that will be coming in to be mentor parents to provide the student-led conference experience. So some of the feedback we got is some of our families weren't comfortable leaving their homes, coming to the school to do their student-led conference. And so we still want to allow students to, they spent a month and a half building those skills on like their grows and glows and how to present and reflect on their work. And so we have some mentor parents that are gonna come in and provide that opportunity where the kid can still sit and do the conference and practice it. So then they can take their folder home and then present it in home to their families as well. And then just different activities that we have going on as well. We're starting to access more parent volunteers than we ever have before.
Yeah, to grow on that, we've been, especially our EB team, wanting to have parent night specifically for EBs, but we've been trying to be creative about having it at times when it's whole school. So for instance, we are having conferences coming up and our ELD teacher has been in contact with families to say, oh, I'm going to have like a little bit of an open house in my classroom, so you can have a little bit of an extra check-in. So we'll have some snacks and coffee and kind of have it like a second environment to invite bilingual families into that space. And our hope is that because that's a time when lots of families are coming, it wouldn't be it wouldn't potentially be targeted. Because that is the main concern of having like an ED focused or a bilingual family focused night, is we don't want to advertise to any, to draw any negative attention and have people be targeted. So we're trying to be creative about that.
Is there any other? All right, well, thank you all for taking the time to be here. I appreciate it. And you're welcome to come in and tour with me anytime if you'd like to see this all live and in action.
Highly recommend.
You guys meeting after this?
No,
Oh, okay.
you gotta
You're the show tonight.
You're the show tonight.
Oh, good, I like being
If there's any objection or question,
Hi.
discussion, we'll adjourn.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.